Hello, and welcome to the Cryptocurrency News channel. So, we're actually going to talk about why XRP is still a good investment. It's just not what some of the hype actually have mentioned it was going to be. And there's also going to be some XRP news. So, overall, like my stance is it's still a pretty good long-term investment, but it's not going to make your like $100 investment millions of dollars like some people want it to be. It's not going to like 589. It's not going to $10,000 or anything. And like a lot of those like theories are just getting more and more desperate, and they're basically not going to be true. It is what it is right now. The market price is 20 cents, 21 cents. I mean, or 21.5, whatever. The fair price, that website doesn't really mean anything because you can't find me a fair value exchange or a fair value wallet. So that value doesn't actually mean anything. Let's start with the XRP news. So basically, Ripple partner FlashX, which has already extended the platform to the Philippines and Australia, and there's been a spike in the Filipino usage, which really hasn't affected price. It might actually bring it to Japan in Q1 of next year, and that was by Crypto Erie. When Crypto Erie was talking to this person, he said, "Hey, we use ODL for USD to Bitstamp. Japan is coming in Q1, I understand." So FlashFX is actually pretty small. It's for moving exchange. It's to move from exchange to exchange, I think. It is part of the ODL platform, and it is going to actually come to Japan soon. So that's pretty cool. ODL is expanding in another corridor, but despite all the millions of dollars in corridors, the price of XRP has actually gone down. Now, I'm going to go through a lot of the things I always get on Twitter when I'm arguing with people, like why XRP can get to Bitcoin's price, which it can't. And a lot of the fallacies they actually use. They always use that, like, well, Bitcoin was 0.001 cents in 2009 and it went to $20,000. Why can't XRP do that? Well, there's a few things. Like, where do you actually start? When Bitcoin was first launched, no one knew what the hell cryptocurrency was. It was a completely new thing. That's essentially like Jeff Bezos starting to pack things in his mom's basement to sell for Amazon. So if you invest in Jeff Bezos, then obviously you're going to get a huge return. No one knew what cryptocurrency was. It was like this new cool thing, like a toy thing, and there were only 21 million Bitcoins. So the scarcity of Bitcoin versus XRP, Bitcoin obviously wins that because there are only 21 million of them. There's 99 billion XRP. It's not really even on the same level. But if you're talking about 2009 Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto, which I actually think is Hal Finney, creating Bitcoin on his computer, no one knew what it was. He was just basically creating it as kind of like a test for transfers, and then it caught on, and eventually like the network kind of like organically grew through the next few years. Obviously, if you invest at the very front where no one knows what Bitcoin is or what cryptocurrency is, it completely opens up a new category. That is by far the best ROI and the most ROI you're going to get, especially if you actually get into it right then. Now, XRP came in 2012, end of 2012, and the cryptocurrency was still in its infancy, and it was still new, but XRP's birth is not quite the same thing as cryptocurrency's birth. Bitcoin's birth was basically some obscure guy creating on his computer. It had no value at that point. And if something like that becomes super successful, then obviously it's going to by far have a higher ROI than anything else. Now, XRP coming into being, it was actually a company. They actually formed Ripple Incorporated, and they created their 100 billion tokens, kept some themselves, and started distributing it. So it was already a company, not a big company, but a company of maybe not well-known people at that time, but company of people that have worked in the NSA and stuff. There was an actual corporation, Ripple Labs, that was going around selling this coin. They didn't do an ICO, but they did sell like specific coin sales. So at that point, your base in 2012 for XRP was already higher than the base, much, much higher than the base in 2009 for Bitcoin, because it was random obscure guy creating this for a payment system. There wasn't a company. It was just testing it with a couple of friends. If that becomes successful, that's going to have a much higher ROI than if you already have a company, you already created a token, you have a white paper, everything set up, because that's at a much higher level already. Now, plus there's 100 billion coins. And also, when XRP debuted, it didn't debut at the same price that Bitcoin debuted. Bitcoin, when it debuted, was actually at a lower price. because it was basically something that something that one or a few people created, didn't have a company behind it. When XRP debuted, it was around half of a penny. When Bitcoin first debuted, it was like 0.001 pennies. So you can't really, it's hard to compare the two, because one basically started in completely new category. One basically came in 3 years later with a company already sort of backing it. So the ROI for the first one, first of all, if you take it from its beginning, is going to be higher than the ROI for the second one if they're both successful. The other thing is, people always say like, well, Bitcoin in 2009 was this. Why can't XRP have those kind of returns that Bitcoin had from 2009? Because you can't compare to XRP now with Bitcoin in 2009 in year one or at the beginning of year one. XRP is not new right now. It's been around for 7 years. We're going into year 7, year 8 for XRP. This is like, if you want to compare XRP right now with the same timeline where Bitcoin was, you'd have to compare it. It's like more like XRP right now would be the same thing as Bitcoin at the end of 2016, not like in year one, because XRP's year one was basically 2012, end of 2012. They're like Bitcoin end of 2009 equals XRP end of 2012. Bitcoin end of 2016 roughly is XRP end of 2019. So you have to compare the timelines at a parallel point for how long they've existed. What was actually Bitcoin at the end of 2016? I don't exactly remember what price Bitcoin was, but it was a hell of a lot more than 21 cents, I'm sure. And the thing is, yes, Bitcoin did rise a lot further. I think at the end of 2016, Bitcoin was pretty close to $1,000. So it actually did rise to $20,000 at the next cap. Now, XRP right now is 21 cents. So if it has the same it has the same doubling or it has the same multiplier effect in the next bull run, it should get to about $4.5. And I'm actually cool with that valuation, because I do think XRP can get to $4.5 in the next bull run. Everyone thinks that because it got to $3 in the last bull run, it can go to like $500 in the next bull run. That's not true. I mean, the market's a lot more mature now, and there's a lot more liquidity in the market. And some people are thinking liquidity just pumps the coin higher. That's not actually true. What liquidity actually does is it kind of prevents large movements either way. Because if you have a lot of liquidity, that means there's bigger walls on each side. There's a lot more bigger walls right now than there was back in 2017. 2017, to buy up or dump down a coin, like even for XRP, it was a fairly small amount of money. There weren't a lot of exchanges. Not a lot of exchanges had XRP, and you couldn't really trade out for fiat. So people had a very hard time selling out. Right now, if you want to sell it for XRP for USD, it's very easy. Coinbase, Binance.us, Kraken, and like all these exchanges have the USD trade. Back then, Coinbase didn't have XRP, and a lot of these other exchanges didn't have the USD trade either. So you couldn't really sell out. So people were more likely just to keep it in there. This next time when there's a big bull run for any of these altcoins, there's going to be a lot more people selling out, because they are going to find it a lot easier to sell out than last time. So the bull run might actually be kind of midgetated. There are going to be people that find it easier to buy in, but the thing is, once the price gets to like 10 or 20 times the current price, those people that wanting to buy in are going to have to buy in for 10 or 20 times more than the people who are selling out. They bought in for much less, and the people who are buying in just aren't going to have that much money to break through all those walls and to keep the price going higher. You might get the price to go to like $5 or $10, but at that point, it's going to come collapsing down on such a bull run. The other thing is there are futures markets. Futures markets are very important because you can actually bet against the coin without actually holding the coin. Once the coin starts going up a lot, and it's going to be like what they call overbought. People are going to start shorting it, and that's going to affect the market, and that's going to make the market crash down for any coin, not just XRP. The other thing is XRP is only a disappointment to you if you had really high incredibly stupidly high expectations for it. And yes, that is the fault of a lot of social media people, basically passing around these crazy ass theories that XRP was going to go to like $50 in one night. It was going to go to like $5.89, that crappy little cartoon bear thing. And then like when those failed, they actually made their predictions even more ridiculous to keep people actually interested. That's where you get like this crazy crap like pre-allocation theory, which essentially can't really be true. there's basically no way that can actually be true. You're not going to be able to keep a secret under wraps for years and years of that level and not have like insiders buy everything for their families and friends. And when we see like the XRP movement on the ledger, um, it just doesn't really say it doesn't really tell that at all. That's not the story it tells at all, and that's very transparent. So that particular theory and all those other theories are like really aren't going to be true. The same thing with ILP. I mean, even if ILP works, it's not guaranteed to use XRP because ILP is like ledger agnostic. They can essentially use any ledger, and you're seeing them testing ILP with like both Ethereum and XRP already, which means it's not going to be completely XRP dominated. And that's if ILP actually gets propagated throughout the years. You have to remember, it's been 2 years now since the last pump, and we have gotten more adoption. The prices really haven't followed adoption, and that kind of proves that ODL, unless it's on an extremely large scale, probably won't affect price all that much, and much of the price is still speculative. Some people think that banks are all of a sudden going to buy the price up in this crazy Shane Ellis theory thing. Banks aren't that stupid. That is a great way to go bankrupt. Big institutions, if they want to buy a lot of XRP, are going to buy OTC, so where they're not actually buying the price up. If you actually want a price run up, you're going to have to depend on a lot of retail people to actually buy it up on the exchanges, because big institutions, banks and stuff, they're not going to want to, they're not really going to, there's really no case where they're going to buy up the price all the way on the exchanges, because it's going to cost them so much money that way. And if the price drops afterwards, then they just lost billions of dollars. They're not going to risk that, because heads are going to roll if they do something that stupid. Big FIs are honestly not that stupid. They're not going to do that. They're going to let the retail investors buy it up so they can actually sell out for more money. And plus, one of the main selling points for ODL anyways is that banks don't have to hold on to it at all. You kind of forgot Brad Garlinghouse's point, that the only reason that banks are willing to use it at all is because they don't actually have to hold it, and they don't actually have to take that kind of risk investing in this stuff. So kind of like the whole kind of theory, the whole kind of notion sort of falls apart when you really analyze it deep. I do think there are several use cases for it. I do think like the more exotic corridors will actually start to use it. I mean, there might be like, when you get like 5-10 years from now, there actually might be like 3, 4, 5 billion volume, like just transaction volume per day with XRP, and that would force a slightly higher price. I do think it can get to like $10 or $20 10 years from now, but I don't really see it growing much higher than that. But you have to remember, $10 or $20 10 years from now is roughly 20-30x within 10 years. You're not going to get anywhere close to that with a traditional investment. Remember, risk always comes with reward. And with XRP, which is an established company in Ripple, with the third biggest cryptocurrency already valued in the billions of dollars, you're not really taking all that much risk anymore. I mean, you're still taking risks, of course, as crypto, but you're not taking nearly as much risk as people buying the smaller coins. So the reward's going to balance out with the risk. So the reward isn't going to be like 1,000x or 10,000x. It's more likely to be 50, 60x on the high end. And that's still a very, very good return. So the thing is, like, because of futures, because there's actually a lot more liquidity for XRP, both buying and selling out, it's going to, like, the prices are not going to suddenly jump like 500-600% at once. The reason why you see like small coins jump 500-600% at once is because they don't have any liquidity. And when people actually want to buy it, there's no OTC market for them. So the only way you can actually acquire it is to actually buy the price up and up. That's not true for XRP. There is an OTC market. There's plenty of liquidity on both sides. So when people actually want to buy it, even retail buyers, they don't actually have to buy the price up, or the price is going to move up very slowly. There's a lot bigger walls on both sides, and the walls are probably 100 times bigger now than they were in 2017. So you can't really expect that easy of a price rise like in 2017. Now, there could be a lot more money coming in this time, so that's why I think it can actually get to $4 or $5 in the next bull run if we actually get lucky, especially if Bitcoin goes to 40 or 50,000. But that's why I think like smaller coins with less liquidity, with partnerships, have a much bigger potential as well. Of course, they're a lot more risky. Like take VeChain, for instance. The buy and sell walls on both sides aren't as big. That means when someone starts buying it up, it's going to rise a lot faster. And when someone dumps it down, it's also going to dump a lot faster. So like I said, it's also a slightly riskier investment. So the more risk you have, the more reward you get. That's especially true with things like AGI, DAG, the other things I've been mentioning. There's almost no walls on either side for any of those. and it would take very little money to buy it up or sell it down. Whereas XRP, if you look at the market, like especially on the big exchanges, it takes a lot of money. And plus, people are going to short it and use the futures and derivatives market, so it's actually much harder to pump it up. And also, just how much money has to go into it. Um, you're not really going to get the same 38,000% returns that you saw in 2017. That was really the first big burst for XRP. I mean, that was kind of like, like, I guess you could say like 2013 was kind of like the ICO stage for XRP because that's when it first went from like half a cent to 5 cents. And then 2017 was kind of like the first major up since the ICO. It took about 4 years. So right now, if you're buying XRP, you're basically buying Amazon when it was like $50, $100. And that's before all the stock splits. Amazon, actually, if we consider all the stock splits, it's at about $2,000 right now. So that's like before all the stock splits. You're buying Amazon at like $100. You're not buying Amazon at 2 cents. Like Bitcoin in 2009, if you bought it, that's like buying Amazon at a penny. XRP, if you're buying it right now, you're essentially buying Amazon at like $100. Now, if it goes to $2,000, you still get the Tony X, and it's a great investment, even if it's 10 years down the line. But you're talking about a product that's already been out there for 7 years, that's actually already widely known in the crypto industry, that has a lot of liquidity on both sides. So that's why I think like XRP is still a very good investment for the long term, if you're willing to hold on for the long term. But if you're wanting to turn $100 into $1,000,000, that's not the crypto investment that you should be looking at. You should be looking at much smaller coins, or you should be looking at trading, because that's another way to, like, if you're good at it, to turn $100 into $1,000,000. Essentially, that's almost the only way. You have to jump from project to project to do that. You're probably not going to get that on one project. So that is today's episode. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe and hit that bell notifications button. Thank you and have a nice day.